Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from alpha memes. For starters, you'll need to own the Ideology DLC, as well as the additional workshop content, vanilla expanded framework, and harmony. Whilst not required, this mod does have a few integrations with all other official DLC, vanilla Ideology expanded, memes and structures, alpha prefabs, vanilla expanded cooking, and vanilla expanded brewing. So we've covered vanilla Ideology expanded, now it's time to cover the other half of the must-have content that comes with alpha memes. Whilst you can run alpha memes without using vanilla Ideology expanded, both of them benefit greatly from working alongside one another. There's basically no overlap in what they do, so you aren't going to need to cherry pick parts of the mods to avoid duplications. They are designed to work in harmony. For my coverage of this mod, I'll be using the integrations I mentioned to show off all of the available memes. I've already got coverage on the channel of alpha prefabs, vanilla Ideology expanded, vanilla cooking expanded, and brewing expanded, so if you see something in the footage that you do like the look of, there's already a video explaining it in the rundown playlist. Let's break this down how we did with memes and structures last time then. As at the time of recording, you're getting 6 low impact, 14 medium impact, and 3 high impact memes for a total of 23 new options, all with associated presets, roles, and buildables as needed. Of course, it isn't just memes either, you're also getting a bunch more structures and styles, as well as overhauls to existing styles to help give them a little bit more flair. You'll be seeing some big changes to Animalist, Techist, Totemic, Rustic, Morbid, and Spikecore. If you also found that things like Christian, Islamic, or Hindu styles were a little bit lacking in comparison to vanilla Spikecore or Morbid stuff, you'll be happy to see they now offer some more actual variety, instead of just different sculptures or ideograms. Think of it as Religion 2.0. This time the Pope rides on a skateboard rather than sitting in the back of his car. We're going to go through this like in the vanilla Ideology expanded video. So first up is the structures that have minimal impact, in terms of how much the style changes and if they're not providing that much of an impact to gameplay. So going in with low tier, we have Alienism. This applies the ocular style, which I'm shocked doesn't actually change that much given Sarg's love for all things eyeball related. It does pair nicely with some of the other supernatural looking styles though, giving you a more Beholder-esque aesthetic. The Jewish origin gives you the Jewish style, which is around the same level of impact as the overhauled Christian and Hindu styles. In comparison, Jain and Sikh, which provide styles of the same name, are closer to the overhauled Islamic style, replacing less standard items but providing a few new buildables. Finally, at the low tier impact there is Atheist, and whilst this does require a preset related to religion, with it either being disliked, despised, or having proselytism disliked, the style only alters ritual ambience. As you'd expect for atheism, these presets are opinion debuffs towards other colonists that follow religious structures in their ideology, from just disliking others' preaching to outright hating others for even existing with a religious belief. It's why agnostics are more fun to hang around with, because atheists are blind to the irony of railing against religion whilst preaching to others that what they believe in, or rather don't believe in, is the correct answer.
Shut up! Oh my god, I don't care!
Then you've got the structures that apply styles with vast overhauls, without adding any new mechanics, presets, or needs to the colony. These are Steampunk, Cubicism, Flesh, and Void Touched. The Flesh style pairs really well with the ocular replacements if you're looking for a goopy, organic gross base. As you'd expect, the Void Touch and Cubicism pair fantastically with an anomaly focused run, and Steampunk is an all-around good time, especially if you're rocking with things like Helixian gas, as it'll overhaul the pipes and pumps too. Finally, you've got the structures that feature not only extensive styles, but also add in new buildables or mechanics. First of these is one that I frequently use when starting as tribals, because it's beautiful. Neolithic adds in some replacements for not only your low-level armaments, but also some of the early industrial clothing and buildings too. Whilst taking this structure doesn't lock you into low-level tech, it will remove your normal beds and tables, so you're always going to have a bit of a more Unga Bunga look regardless of how far you advance. Alongside your primitive buildings, there is also a need for buildings called megaliths. You'll need to construct one of these for every 3 colonists under your control, or suffer a colony-wide mood debuff. These are huge, work and resource intensive structures that provide a phenomenal amount of beauty and style dominance in the local area, making for very happy colonists indeed. As standard, these are going to take 550 stony material and over 1,500 work to complete, with a normal quality megalith producing 500 beauty, before any material buffs. If you can manage to get your hand on a solid amount of jade and aren't really sweating how much extra market value it's going to add, a megalith made from jade will provide 1,260 beauty at a normal quality. Add in a production specialist or get a creative inspiration when making these and you can get some utterly insane values. But it does sometimes make for a bit of a strange disconnect when your loincloth wearing colonists are sleeping in a stone bed after a long day of work in the genetics lab.
We're getting an expert in to determine cause of death.
Right.
And here is cavewoman pathologist Ursula.
Morning, Detective.
Morning, Ursula.
Scavenger is quite an ugly style, but intentionally so. If you ever wanted to make your colony look like a Fallout settlement, this is the solution. It pairs exceptionally well with the Scrapper meme as it unlocks the building of junk items to provide that mood buff around your colony. As well as it being an extensive style and adding in these extra buildables, it also gives you the scrapping ritual, which breaks down some advanced tech to provide a standard ritual reward with more development points than normal and a chance to produce components. The Corsair style is pretty overpriced and at some point you're going to hate everything in your room being RGB. Fortunately, in Rimworld it's less of a neon nightmare and more piratey. As well as being a pretty extensive style, it also features a new craftable and gives you an alternative nutrient paste dispenser. Firstly, the eye patch. Made it a tailoring bench, it only costs 15 cloth. For this you're getting a bit of pirate drip and it limits your sight to a max of 50%, so you've got to be really committed to the aesthetic if you want to use these extensively. The grog dispenser works exactly the same as a nutrient paste dispenser, uses the same amount of power, has the same building footprints, but it only needs wood to build. It also features a pretty amazing reference in its item description.
Grog is a secret mixture which contains one or more of the following. Kerosene.
Kemetic is the final choice, being not only an expansive and beautiful style, but also including a new specialist role and thematic buildables. As you can see from the aesthetic, it covers ancient Egyptian vibes and progresses all the way up to developing a futuristic twist for their Spacer Gear too. The Master Architect is an insanely strong specialist. To obtain it from just picking this structure means that if you lean hard towards min-max gameplay, you might struggle not to go Kemetic every time. As long as a colonist has a construction skill of 6, they can be assigned this role. It provides them with a 60% construction speed bonus and grants them 2 abilities. First is the Pristine Limestone conversion. This converts blocks, and specifically blocks, not chunks or walls, from whatever type of stone they are into the new Pristine Limestone material. Stat wise, this has more max HP than granite whilst taking less work to build with. As well as that, it's got a higher beauty percentage offset when compared to marble, but it doesn't grant that flat +1 to beauty. So provided the item that it's used to make is naturally beautiful, this normally ends up providing a higher benefit. Essentially, it's the best stone to use, for all purposes besides weaponry. This conversion skill has an AoE splash of an effect that isn't shown in the targeting. It will convert all blocks in a 5x5 radius, including the cardinals, around the point that's been selected. So just be aware that if you want to keep some other stone around for specific building options, you do want to store it separately to avoid clipping it with that ability. The other ability the Architect has is Finish Construction, which immediately completes building on the selected structure and only has a 10-day cooldown. Whilst this is probably going to be overkill for most things, there are some serious contenders for making good use of this. Think Grand Meditation Thrones, large nature shrines if you're using stone, or the new buildables for Kemetic. Great Pyramids, Sphinx, Grand Gates, futuristic obelisks, futuristic steles, and futuristic Great Pyramids. These are all insanely expensive and work-intensive structures that dominate the landscape and provide an enormous amount of style and beauty to the surrounding area. The Finish Construction ability is going to allow you to skip over the 40,000 work that's normally needed to build your Great Pyramid, allowing you to finish it instantly once the resources have been delivered. Just a casual 9,000 stone.
This man is overgasped!
Before we move on to the memes then, let's quickly mention the other specialist included for all colonies if you're playing with alpha memes, as well as the funeral framework. If you've ever found it tedious as balls to have to individually change the style on all of your looted gear to match with your colony, the Master Stylist is perfect for you. This can be assigned to anyone in your colony and provides them with the ability to change styles standardly, randomly, in an area, across the entire map, or swapping from one style to another across the entire map as well, making it incredibly easy to update your base in a single click if you add in a new style when you reform your ideology, or if you want to change all the weapons that the recent raid dropped to match your own aesthetic. The funeral framework adds in some meme and structure specific options, such as the flesh crafting funeral or the pyramid burial, as well as funerals that can be utilised by all colonies, like a sky burial or mummification. Not only that, there are also funerals that come in with other mods, like a dreadnought funeral if you're using pirates, or an extraction funeral if you're using genetics expanded. Some of these options provide more of an interesting effect than simply interring the corpse too, so make sure you're actually checking these choices against the colony you're building to see if any of them tie in nicely with the intended vibe. As far as I'm concerned, when I'm gone, just strap my ashes to a firework and launch me somewhere pretty. Just make sure there isn't too much wind on the day though. That isn't all either. By simply having alpha memes, you're going to have access to 2 other rituals that become available to all colonies, a sparring match and a tantrum ritual. Sparring matches are friendly fistfights between 2 colonists that improve mood and recreation. While they're normally safe in terms of serious injuries, there's always a small risk to fingers, toes, eyes, ears and noses in a fight like this, so consider carefully who you're throwing into the ritual and if it's really the best time to risk needing a replacement or not. The Tantrum ritual gives a more significant mood buff compared to other rituals, and allows your colonists to blow off a little bit of steam, smashing up the local area, like a Rimworld rage room. As long as you're building out of sturdy materials, the majority of structures should survive this, so that same hammer that you use to dent the crap out of the door can then be used to return it to top condition. Just make sure you turn the hammer around first so that it's on the reverse setting. Time for some of these memes then. Let's start at low preference and work our way up. A lot of inclusions with alpha sit around the medium impact range, but you're going to find that even some of the low impact choices will potentially influence the entire direction of a run, should you choose to lean into it rather than just using it to accent your ideology. It seems the alpha mantra on memes were more along the lines of, if it doesn't really change anything, why bother making it?
This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
First up is the Prefab Preference, which predictably needs alpha prefabs to appear. I've already covered alpha prefabs in its own video, so if you'd like to know how they work and what other mods interact with them, I suggest checking that out. The 2 presets the meme requires you to take are for easy acquisition and preferred buying. The easy acquisition is going to grant you 1 free prefab every year, provided you have the tech for it, which is also dependent on how you've got your prefabs mods set up. As you'd imagine, this can be huge. Assuming a basic crash-landed start, that gives you 1 year to research microelectronics, tube TV and smithing. That could then net you a free apartment complex. To go alongside this, buying prefabs, which it specifically checks against obtaining them via traders, not by the catalogue, is going to give you a +5 mood buff. So if you have a decent pile of silver, it's usually worth grabbing any prefabs that you see, even if you don't necessarily want them for the actual room, as you can always place it down and deconstruct it for a chunk of resources and a happy colony. Then you've got a trio of memes that play quite heavily into combat: Gladiator, Sharpshooter and Bulwark. These can't be stacked with each other, which makes sense when you see the effects that they offer. Gladiator is your close combat option. It grants you your usual melee specialist, which isn't that exciting. However, the preset for combat prowess in melee is far more impactful. All of your colonists will now have a flat 20% chance to stun an opponent when landing a hit in melee, regardless of the weapon they're using. As well as that, everyone benefits from 120% melee hit chance and 110% melee dodge chance, at the cost of lowering shooting accuracy to just 70% and imparting a -10 mood debuff if anyone happens to loose an arrow, fire a shot or throw a grenade. You're basically locked into using blades and blunts if you want to succeed, which pairs well with adding in a weapon preference in the ideology too. Bear in mind that the previously mentioned stun chance is always 20%, which can actually incentivize you towards using the fastest weapon you can find rather than the most damaging. Stun locking your opponents means no matter how big and scary they are, they simply can't fight back.
Reached out for the nearest thing at hand, which happened to be a 15-inch black rubber cock. He's then proceeded to batter poor Smithy to death with it.
Sharpshooter goes in the other direction, granting you the shooting specialist, which is easily more useful than the melee specialist thanks to an AoE buff, rather than the solo berserker state. On top of that, you're getting a prowess for distance fighting. The mood debuff for fighting in melee with Sharpshooter is less punishing than having a Gladiator use a ranged weapon. I think it's to try and give you a little bit more wiggle room when enemies engage someone in melee and force them to use an unarmed or weapon butt strike. Stat-wise, it's much more straightforward, with no debuffs to melee combat and shooting accuracy up to 110%. The largest buff comes into weapon range. That extends the distance you can fire out with all handheld weapons by 20%, and I say handheld as you won't find the buff impacting mortars and the like, which isn't a great loss given that most of the time they're map wide anyway. As you would expect, this power leans heavily into ranged weapons that have high values on their long accuracy and allows you to simply outdistance your enemy and kill them before they even get into a position that allows for retaliation. Finally, you have Bulwark. This comes with a choice of preset, either sharp, blunt, or heat armor specialization. Regardless of the type you pick, it'll always come with a reduction of 0.1 to melee dodge chance and a -3 mood debuff if the colonist isn't wearing any metallic armor, which flips to a +3 mood buff if they are wearing a piece of metal armor. There's nothing too crazy here. Whatever armor type you pick, it's going to apply a 25% bonus to that defense on all gear your colonists wear. Now, given that we know the hardest thing in Rimworld to defend against is blunt damage, that's the pretty clear winner here. There's also a pretty clear loser, as heat armor already hits ridiculous amounts as standard without needing an extra 25%.
Speaking of movies, you ever see Man on Fire?
Is that the one with that?
Youth is the next meme, and it's here to provide a contrast to Elders, which came in with memes and structures from Vanilla Ideology Expanded. This provides the natural opinion debuff that most players feel towards their older colonists in Rimworld, with anyone over the age of 65 experiencing a -40 opinion from all followers of the ideology, whilst those under 25 are granted a +20 opinion buff instead. The nicest part of the meme is a 20% increase to learning rate for children, which will easily lead to super colonists if you're doing a generational run. If you want to make it easier to do a generational run, try using the meme for Fertility. This increases all colonists' fertility by 20% and totally removes the risk of a mother dying during childbirth. It doesn't mean you're immune to bad quality birth conditions risking a sickly or even stillborn outcome though. This will also require the preset for Lovin being either increased or exuberant, which greatly reduces the cooldown between Lovin. The formula behind Lovin is something else though. It includes pain, consciousness, age difference, beauty, and opinions. It's got offsets all over the place, so it's not as straightforward as me saying you're going to be smashing every night with this. There are a lot of other factors at play. It also prevents the presets for physical love being considered horrible or entirely prohibited. You've got to do things the old-fashioned way with Fertility. You're not web-slinging or using turkey basters here. On to medium memes then, with 14 additions to cover. Cowboys is up first, and it's an extremely thematic choice for something that I personally haven't messed with that much myself. You want to pair this with something like Frontier Weapons or the Settlers faction for peak aesthetic. You're going to get 3 presets and 1 new ritual with the meme. The presets have some pretty heavy effects too, with ranching focused around cattle. For the sake of clarity, animals that are milkable are now considered cattle, as well as muffalo and bison. This cattle-centered preset will provide a scaling mood debuff, or buff, depending on how many cattle and pens you have within your colony. As well as the mood change, it also grants you a 15% improvement to the price of any animal goods, making for highly profitable trades. Cattle can then be improved through a different preset that provides them with increased immunity gain. faster eating speed, and a reduced need for nutrition, making it easier to keep a large amount of animals around without any losses due to starvation or illness. The final preset is a desire for horses, which grants you 2 tamed horses if you start the game with this meme in your ideology, and also makes horses easier to tame and train by lowering their handling requirements, as well as buffing their base movement speed and caravan riding speed. To offset these amazing buffs, colonists are now going to be upset when a colony horse dies, just like you were at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2. You can admit to crying at that point, there's no shame in that. As well as coming in with an increased chance for a preference for wearing cowboy hats, you'll also get the ritual for a rodeo. Weirdly, this ritual doesn't come with a reward option to have farm animals wander in, but the rodeo needs a moral guide, a cowboy, and a single cattle animal to participate. You get to watch a little dance and enjoy all the yee-hawing that comes with it. This meme alone kinda makes me want to try a tech-restricted run and see how far it can go.
Bye, Miss Laura.
Now we got Water Primacy. This comes in with additional effects if you're also using Dub's Bad Hygiene, providing a mood bonus based on how many tubs and showers are located in your colony, as well as making colonists burn through their hygiene bar a little bit faster. If you're not using dubs, you can still make use of this meme. Of course, if you pick Water Primacy, you're kind of expected to land near a river, a lake, or the sea. You get the majority of your bonuses from being near to water tiles, with water being desired, which nullifies the soaking wet mood debuff, as well as providing either a mood buff if there's more than 100 tiles of water on your map, or a more severe debuff if there are less than 100 tiles of water. Your planting is going to be buffed thanks to the reverence for hydro-agriculture, which is different to hydroponics, in that this increases growth rate for plants placed within 3 tiles of a natural water source. If you happen to spawn with fertile soil around a section of riverbank or a small pond, this can be extremely powerful to get that initial meal source production up and running, although you're unlikely going to have enough space around these areas to meaningfully cheese it without needing to walk for miles planting alongside an entire riverbank. One part of Water Primacy is the Blessed Rainfall, that also nullifies the Soaking Wet thought. Again, this provides a +5 mood buff when it's raining. Water Primacy also comes with a baptism ritual that requires the new buildable with the meme, the baptismal font. This requires you to have a moral guide and a target that needs to be baptized, as well as gaining a sizable success chance for being performed close to a large body of water. It works like an all or nothing conversion ritual, with a good outcome instantly converting the baptized and a negative outcome understandably upsetting them and reinforcing their original faith. Iconoclast is a sleeper meme. I can guarantee there are some of you out there who have used alpha memes for years and you've never picked this. Why would you? It sounds really flat in concept. Rather than collecting your ideological relics to worship them, you gather them up and destroy them, with this meme granting you an altar to smash them on and a ritual for relic destruction. Reliquies are forbidden, with them imparting a -10 mood debuff if you do happen to place one down, and for every relic you destroy you get a permanent mood buff, +2 for smashing 1, +4 for 2, and +6 for 3 or more. But that isn't all, which is why this meme flies under the radar. Absolutely nowhere in this meme does it mention the buff you get on your health tab for destroying a relic, granted to everyone who takes part. Feeling righteous buffs your consciousness, movement, sight, blood filtration, blood pumping, breathing, and it lowers pain, with its highest impact granting a +10 buff to the mentioned stats and lowering pain experience to 85%. That kind of buff across an entire colony is absurd, meaning in this weird way if you pick Iconoclast you want more relics in your ideology, so you always have something to chase after, allowing you to ensure this buff is always stacked as high as possible across everybody that you control. Now we have Gauranlen Supremacy, which is a word I always trip over when I'm saying, so from now on we're just going to call it Gau. This meme is fairly unique in that it requires another meme to be present in order to be picked, so for the sake of simplicity we're running it alongside Tree Connection, as I'll be covering biological corruptors a little bit later on anyway. Gauranlen Supremacy provides 2 presets and quite dramatically flips how you want to approach combat within a colony, as overall combat prowess is reduced, which lowers ranged accuracy and melee hit chance to 80%, it increases ranged cooldown to 120%, and it drops dodge chance to 90%. It doesn't mean your own colonists are totally useless in combat, just mostly.
Mostly.
To make up for this, Dryads have their own combat stats seriously pumped, and you're going to start with 3 creatures known as Unshackled Dryads. These unshackled versions can help around the colony without the need for a Gau tree, but they're not as capable as a specialised Dryad, like a Barkskin tank or a Chlora DPS. As for the buffs to the standard Dryads, they have a lot of increases to their post-processing curve, meaning the stats that they have aren't so squashed across the board. They're also given things like higher armor values and increased manipulation. This ends up basically becoming Pokemon, with you throwing handfuls of Dryads at every threat and trying to plant as many Gau trees as possible to offset the continual losses you're going to experience as the raids get bigger over time. Dryads will unfortunately only get you so far. Then we move on to the average Rimworld enjoyer meme. And yes, I see you in the comments from time to time. You aren't cool or edgy for being a dick to virtual jelly beans. Your family misses you. Call your mother. Seek help. So, Sadist, this flips a lot of the potential negatives around on the unavoidable things in Rimworld, like death and corpses, instead having them provide mood buffs. As well as that, you even get mood buffs and have colonists experience positive opinions around organ harvesting. To offset the removal of these more impactful mood debuffs from your game, you're going to suffer a reputation penalty of 50 points with all other factions as well, and have a permanent decrease to your own crafting quality, dropping everything you make by 1 quality level. This leads quite heavily into either thievery and raiding, or trading organs with orbital traders for the gear that you need. Given that any raider that falls down on your map is a lung, kidney and heart, you won't exactly be struggling for silver either.
Hello, can we have your liver? What? Your liver?
Madness is a meme that plays heavily into those "oh god not now" moments. It revolves almost entirely around mental breaks. You're leaning into them with this, not trying to avoid them. Moods are randomly offset between -15 or +15 every single day. Mental break threshold is increased by 25%, which remember is a bad thing. Positive values for mental break threshold make it easier to snap. Mental breaks are rewarded with an improved catharsis buff that provides 60 mood and a health offset called Cathartic Adrenaline. This lowers pain felt to 75%, as well as buffing consciousness, movement, sight, blood filtration, blood pumping, breathing, and sharp and blunt armor, lasting for 24 hours. The final preset that comes with Madness is the affinity option for psychic sensitivity. It lowers colonist sensitivity by 10%, but provides you with a free Psylink neuroformer at the start of the game. A 10% drop isn't the end of the world, so it's pretty worth it. The final part with the Madness meme is the Maddening Chant ritual, which forces the participants to experience a mental break if it goes well. If the ritual goes poorly, it simply imparts a mood debuff, which hopefully leads to a mental break anyway, so it's win-win. Feels almost like the Maddening Chant going poorly should actually provide a mood buff to make it harder to break, but whatever.
Yeah, sure, honey. Appear to be opening the box, while in fact the lid stays very firmly on.
From something completely insane and game disrupting to one of the most chill memes you can pick in this entire pack. Artists is one of those choices suited towards a laid back run where you aren't stressing over things like combat or wealth management. It provides a handful of very straightforward presets, such as a need for art, that will provide an increasing mood buff depending on the amount of art that's displayed around the colony in relation to your current colonist count. Alongside wanting a lot of art, there's an expectation that the art around the base isn't utter trash, so you can't simply tape a banana to a wall, with awful and poor quality pieces actually lowering mood rather than improving it. To make it easier to manage this need for overwhelming amounts of high quality artwork, the production speed at the art bench is increased. This comes at the cost of lowering automation efficiency, meaning your electric workbenches and factories, if you're using them, will basically be operating around the same speed as a manual workbench. Oof. Onto another really chill meme that was added with the January update, tea primacy. This is only going to be an option if you're using vanilla expanded brewing, as it would be pretty hard to make use of tea without the mod that includes it. It makes it extremely easy to mass produce tea, with buffs to the plant's growth rate of 20% and a 10% increased yield. You're going to need it as well. At moderate expectations, colonists become British and unlock a need for tea, meaning you basically have an addiction across every single follower of this ideology, with an empty tea need imparting a -12 mood debuff. Fortunately, drinking tea comes with additional mood buffs upon consumption if you've got this meme too. A normal cup of tea grants +4, a speciality tea from Brewing Expanded grants +5, and even drinking Psychite tea gives +1, although the growth and yield bonuses aren't imparted on Psychite plants. Finally, you get the tea ceremony ritual, which might not actually work as you would expect. The ceremony doesn't require tea to perform, instead it has a chance to produce tea if the outcome was good or spectacular, with the best outcomes even having a chance to make a speciality tea, provided that you're using the expansion for brewing.
Would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah, sure.
You go on, have a cup of tea.
Thank you. Do you regret? Do you
Would you
regret,
like a cup of tea?
Do you regret your comments? Do you regret your comments?
Go on, have a cup of tea.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Epicurean is the meme you'll be able to make use of if you're playing with vanilla expanded cooking. This grants some really unique effects too. Firstly, it's going to make nutrient paste basically impossible to use, with it imparting a -10 mood debuff and causing the colonist that eats it to immediately barf, basically offsetting any nutrition that was gained by eating it. Meal quality and table quality become something that's desired. That's right, it's no longer enough just to have a table for your colonist to eat at, it now needs to be at least normal quality too. The meal quality desire gives raw food even more of a negative impact and causes simple meals to actually give a small negative mood effect when eaten, making fine meals your minimum standard for food in most cases, without risking a mood debuff anyway. Fortunately, you're given a preset for kitchen proficiency, set at extreme. This increases cooking speed and provides a very interesting effect of occasionally improving the quality of a meal or applying a condiment effect to it. So if you're making fine meals with rice and any type of meat, you occasionally see that they come out as lavish or have an additional buff, thanks to a random condiment that you never actually used. The ritual with this meme is Banquet, requiring a new table to be built in order to perform it. The table requires lavish meals of some form to be constructed. Grills, soups, desserts, bakes, carnivore, vegan, or just plain lavish will do, with the table allowing you to perform the ritual, which, provided it goes well, gives everybody an eating speed buff for 2 days. As you would expect, the quality of the ritual also grants either a mood debuff or a buff. If you don't have the resources to burn making lavish meals constantly to build these tables, you can always forbid your colonists from eating lavish meals and hope that the 5% chance of increased quality lets you stockpile enough by making fine instead. Next up is the trio of memes that go in vastly different directions, whilst working around a similar theme: biological reconstructors, corruptors, and defilers. Let's start with reconstructors. This gives you the new buildable of the animal database, or Pokédex if you will. This meme gets significantly harder to work with as you install more mods that bloat out the animal variety in your game. So whilst it can be exponentially more rewarding, it is also a much bigger task to accomplish. All of your colonists are going to have the ability to analyse a creature. At least I hope I'm saying that word correctly. This adds information about the animal into your database, which in turn gives a bonus to the animal's filth rate and caravan riding speed, as well as lowering the handling requirement to tame and train the animal. And whilst you can use this meme to create a menagerie of creatures, you're incentivized to catch and release thanks to the mood buff you receive for scanning and then freeing the animals. The core mood buff, or debuff around this meme, comes with the completion percentage of your own animal database. Hence, the more potential animals you have to study, the longer it's going to take to increase that percentage up, so it's no longer imparting a negative mood offset, with you needing to hit at least 10% of all known species in order to bring that mood offset to 0. Now we'll cover the Defilers, which I know is hopping over Corruptors, but they're a little bit more involved. Defilers treats all animals like the bison in 19th century America. If it can be cooked, it should be. Bonding with animals becomes abhorrent, making it impossible to tame, train or bond with them. It also lowers the prices of animal goods by 30% and removes all potential gather yield from them entirely. Basically, you aren't having cattle or pets, no matter how much you beg for that puppy. Slaughtering animals, on the other hand, becomes desired, with both butchery efficiency and plant work speed being improved with this preset, as well as providing some minor mood and opinion buffs towards those working at culling the local animal population. If you happen upon some animals, like a group of chickens joining your colony, releasing them is discouraged, with each release imparting -3 mood and stacking up to 3 times. The best way to get rid of them is sending them to the butcher table instead. The main addition with this meme comes with despised animals, like a photo negative of venerated animals. These are the creatures that grant you a sizable mood buff when slain, so provided you pick them sensibly and land in the right biome, it makes for very easy and consistent perks across your colony.
Wait, there's a varmint! Is he gonna explode?
Yeah! Are those little prairie dogs? Oh no, it's a little prairie dog!
Let's go back to the Corruptors then. This is the most alpha of all 3 choices, with a focus on everything having eyeballs that plays best when paired with alpha animals and alpha biomes. This meme comes with a preset that causes the desire for nearby ocular trees, so you'll need to be living in an ocular forest to get an instant buff from this. It then leans quite heavily on using ocular funerals, ocular warping rituals, and cooldowns from the unique role of the ocular priest. You also need to make use of Gauranlen trees with this meme, so getting your hands on some seeds as quickly as possible is advised. If you start with this meme active, you're also going to have some Eilings right off the bat too, just like how Cowboys started with horses or Gau had the Awakened Dryads. Let's cover how ocular funerals play into this first. It needs to take place at a Gau tree, and provided the ritual goes well, it creates a handful of corrupted animals that are immediately tamed. If the ritual goes poorly, you end up like a bunch of Phantar splashed around the base of the tree.
Sayonara.
You'll also notice that with the tree itself, you have access to 5 new types of Dryad. Ocular Dryads are the base for your Ocular Priest to work with during a warping ritual, so to make the most of that role, you're going to need some. Spitter Dryads are slow-moving ranged combatants that fire somewhat weak projectiles, with the biggest threat they pose coming from toxic buildup. Unstable Dryads are your very own boom animals, making for an easy rinse and repeat boom rat defense strategy. The Tumorous Dryad slowly provides meat at a rate of 40 every 2 days, or in simple math, 1 Dryad is 4 simple meals every 2 days. Finally, you've got the Corruptor Dryad, and these won't do much until you have at least 3 of them, at which point they join together and make a pod, which can then be harvested for another Gau seed. These are basically the evil skin for the Gau maker. So that's all of the Dryads, the tree and the funeral. What about the priest and the warping ritual? The priest has the ability to transform a pretty sizable area into an ocular forest once every 24 hours. If you've landed somewhere that wasn't already a visual disaster, it won't be long before you turn it into one. Just be aware that the Ocular Priest role has a heavy impact on the colonists' expectations, similar to assigning someone the leader role or giving them a royal title. That just leaves the Ocular Warping ritual. This needs your Ocular Priest, a sacrifice, and an Ocular Dryad to act as the channel. You're able to sacrifice any normal animal or even a smaller ocular monster like an Eiling, with the outcome of the ritual determining what is summoned to serve you. This allows you to trade up in a way to get a higher tier of ocular monstrosity. This meme very much lives up to the name of Corruptors, because your base is going to look like the Nightmare of Mensis in less than a quadrum. On to another of the more semi-recently added memes then, vampire hunting. This is another one of those memes that doesn't feel modded from the outset. because it makes a lot of sense for something that should have been in base game with the release of biotech, given that blood feeding was added without a contrasting stance. Hunting works about as you'd expect, with a little bit of extra flair, quite literally. With your hunt focus, attacks against sanguiphages made by followers of this ideology cause additional burn damage. Given their inherent vulnerability to fire, it makes downing the immortal bastards a much more reliable affair. If you're using expanded sanguiphage races from either Vanilla Expanded or Alpha, you get to pick which one you have this advantage against. As you would expect, blood feeders are reviled and death rest caskets are abhorrent. The upside to hating these bitey gits is that killing someone with a blood feeder gene will grant a mood buff. To give you easier access to reliably hunt them down, the Sanguiphage Camp preset for raiding being desired generates a quest every quadrum, outside of your normal storyteller settings. These give great mood buffs, opinion bonuses, loot, and development points. Just be aware, these raids are required. If you ignore them for too long, you are going to be punished with some pretty heavy mood debuffs instead. Then finally, at medium impact, we have Psychic Vampirism. This twists sidecasting into something that requires more careful resource management on your part, giving a preset for dampened psi focus gain. It nullifies the restoration effect of meditation entirely. For this quite significant downside, you're getting increased psychic sensitivity across your colony too, making any cast you do perform more impactful. So, if you can't get psi focus back from meditation, what options do you have? All followers of this ideology have an ability called Death Knell, which relies quite heavily on humanoids being downed, not outright killed. So if you're playing with standard settings, you might find it a little bit tricky to make good use of the skill. If a colonist without any psi-casting potential uses it on a down target, they gain a small healing boost and a minor mood buff, ending the down target's life by sapping away their very essence. If, however, the user is a psi-caster, they recharge their psi focus and generate a bit of neural heat. You have a couple of options with this. Either lower the death on down chance so there are more targets left after a raid to refill your caster's batteries, or keep the settings as standard but grab all survivors, throw them into a prison and then use them as required. Just remember that installing, then removing peg legs on prisoners stops them from ever attempting to escape and ensures you can cast Death Knell as needed. It's also good medical experience too.
I'll figure this out. The pieces are all there. I'll go home and figure this out.
That just leaves the high impact memes then, and we've only got 3 to go over. Monastic is up first, and whilst it might look like a lot of restrictions, it's fairly straightforward. It heavily leans on you living a more simple life. Everyone following the ideology has the ascetic trait, so large, elaborate and expensive rooms are detrimental in your colony. This is further enforced with the rough living being welcomed and barracks style living being preferred. The barracks does need to land in the right spot though. It has to be better than awful but below extremely impressive. Manual crafting is expected with Monastic too, as electric benches have a work speed debuff. You're also limited in your drink and drug options, with excessive consumption generally being frowned upon, and your colony getting a greater mood buff by relying on medicine instead of tripping balls. Given that you're going to be living a very simple life, this also comes with a plant specialist to help you stay fed. Just remember that growing cotton and putting down fancy carpets everywhere is going to upset people. They crave a nice bland wooden flooring or some simple flagstone. Now let's move from one of the more straightforward high impact memes to one that should realistically be in a league of its own. Impossible tier. The Vow of Nonviolence. If you hate yourself, and I mean like a really deep-seated kind of hate, you know, the one where you don't have any mirrors in your house, this meme is ideal for you. Raiding? Abhorrent. Slavery? Abhorrent. Execution? Abhorrent. Eating meat? Abhorrent. Killing innocent animals? Abhorrent. Slaughtering animals? Horrible or prohibited. Violence? You guessed it. Abhorrent. This preset makes all followers of the ideology incapable of violence. Not only that, if anyone dies on your map, regardless of the cause, you experience a mood debuff. To try and offset your own colonists causing harm of any kind, mental breaks are always wonders. There's no risk of a rampage or a fight. and to try and defend yourself with this ideology, you're granted the ability to build blunt traps, and you start with a handful of them to place around your colony. Blunt traps are less lethal, which is to say not entirely non-lethal, much in the same way that an airsoft gun or a paintball isn't really considered a lethal weapon, but you still wouldn't want to be shot in the face with one. This meme is here for, well, purely that, for the memes. You aren't expected to make it far or to win if you're using this, but it does go a long way in testing your trap corridor shenanigans.
Hey Ryan.
Hey Billy.
And that brings us to the last meme, Deforestation. Again, it's a weirdly straightforward meme for being high impact, with the risk coming more from how much work you need to do on your map to achieve the meme's goals. Trees are despised, which means you'll need to cut them constantly, granting you a mood buff for all the trees you've chopped per quadrum, and another buff for not seeing trees regularly on your tile. Now comes the tricky part. You have an increased wood cutting yield, and are also spending a great deal of time cutting down all trees on your map. So you're going to be drowning in wood as a resource. You need to find any excuse to waste, burn, or throw it away to try and clear not only the clutter, but also the wealth it's continually pushing on you. Fortunately, you do get more benefits for using wood as a building resource, with the preset for rough living being shunned, granting a mood bonus for sleeping in a wooden bed and eating at a wooden table. That does, however, up the debuff for eating without a table, so building one is priority number one. Finally, as you would expect with all the hatred of trees, Gau connections are forbidden, Harbinger trees are disgusting, and if you hack down the anima tree and make it scream, it's actually a buff for your colonists, not a negative. I have no idea what the trees did to wrong you in a previous life that led to you picking this, but the sooner you get your hands on some Molotovs, the easier this meme is to satisfy. Unless you just take it as a freebie and then go and live on the tundra or desert maps. So there we have it, all of Alpha memes, with it swinging quite wildly from things that play as if they could have been included in the base DLC, to parts that are immediately identifiable as having that Sarg touch. Just like Vanilla Ideology Expanded, memes and structures, Alpha memes is something that never leaves my mod list. Playing Ideology without them enabled is like flying to Amsterdam for the weekend and only visiting canals or museums. Sure, it's nice and all, but there are a lot more interesting and unique things you could be doing with your time. Apologies for the delay on getting this one uploaded too. I've been trying to get a reasonably lengthy run recorded that follows some pretty ridiculous self-imposed rules, in the hope of editing it into a multi-part playthrough series for you guys to see. As you can imagine, making it 60 days or so only to be wiped by a single bad decision and having to start over leads to a lot of time investment without a great deal to show for it. Although I am keeping a hold of that footage to show and better explain my learning experience, in the hopes I can elaborate how I got over save scumming in games and started rolling with the punches. If you'd like to see the current suggestion list for mod rundowns, it's available to view on my Patreon page. All the posts there are totally free to read and it's pinned at the very top. You can support me in producing content like this from just £1 a month. It gets your name in the credits of these videos and it does help me to stay alive. Thanks for watching folks. If you have any mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for, or suggestions of mods you would like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments. I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.